Hello and welcome to In Their Own League. I'm Joan Amon, editor-in-chief, and today we're going to be discussing our favorite films of 2024, some Oscar nominations, some Oscar snubs, and a lot more. So, like and subscribe, and I'm going to introduce some members of the team today. We have Brian Scuttle. Brian, tell us about where else we can find you besides the league.
The main place you can find me is www.sonic-cinema.com. There you'll find my written reviews, podcast, and other blogs that I have in mind. I'm also I try to contribute on a regular basis at the league, but also I am I do love guest appearances on podcasts as well. And I also have a Sonic Cinema podcast YouTube channel. Can like and subscribe. That's where you can get the podcast as well as quick take reviews that I'll do on movies throughout the year, whether it's for film festival coverage or just trying to catch up with certain movies or movies I may not have a lot to say about them, but I still want to say something about them.
Hey, where can we find you besides the league?
Were you talking to me?
Yes. Where can we find you besides the league?
I'm sorry, my signal hiccup there for a minute.
That's okay.
I'm a member of the Alliance of Women Film Journalists, so you can find a lot of my reviews at awfj.org. And I also do contribute to rogerebert.com.
And Kaz, we have some special announcement. Kaz was just accepted to cover a film festival. Kaz, tell us where you're going to be covering.
I'm going to be going to Berlin on behalf of the league. Very excited.
Well, I am excited too. So let's get into it. Do we want to do a little bit of a round table to discuss one of our faves this year? Shall we do that first, or would we like to all discuss one fave do we have? Can we say that we all kind of like movie Flow? Are we all happy about Flow being nominated this year?
Yes.
I know I am. I'm delighted. I'm excited about this.
Yeah. I loved it. I loved that the humans, they never explained what had happened to the maybe we should say this entire podcast is going to be completely full of a lot of spoilers.
Yes, we'll be putting a caption on the bottom. Do not venture here unless you've seen these films. There will be spoilers.
Yeah, spoiler heavy episode
Absolutely.
today. Loved that. Yeah, they never explained what happened to the humans. And so you can kind of read into that whatever you sort of want, and you can put your own, maybe this is a future in which they wipe themselves out. Maybe this is a future where animals are kind of given their own destiny. You know, guess what, animals, you get to run free. That they weren't anthropomorphized. They were just them. They were just them. I mean, there was a little bit in around the edges. There was a little bit, but it wasn't like in that sense to compare with a wild robot that completely was. So we've got very opposite ways of approaching animals in that sense. It was just beautifully drawn, and at the end it became quite ethereal and quite kind of otherworldly. Just so much in there to love: the music, the art, the adventure. As somebody who's very sensitive about animals in film, I was nervous because the slightest bit of peril, and I'm like having palpitations. But I knew it was going to be okay, so I was able to watch it. So yeah, 10 out of 10, loved it.
And it actually received 2 nominations, we should say, not just for Best Animated Film, but for Best International Film. And since this comes from the tiny country of Latvia, bravo, Latvia. We are so thrilled for you to have this nomination because I think that's very important. This is an animated film that is not coming out of an American corporation. It's not Disney, it's not Universal, it's Sony, it's not any of the major studios. This is a small country. This is a very small shop. This is a gentleman who maybe with 5 of his friends got together in a single room with a bunch of computers. And he has admitted that he used all free software applications to build this thing. And it's magnificent. It's a masterpiece. So kudos to them. Very delighted about them
Yes.
getting
I
this,
met
and
him.
hopefully they win.
Yeah, I met him at the at London Film Festival when he was doing a talk introducing the film, and he was very quiet. If you've seen him in any of the press, he's very quiet and quite kind of insular. And he said, this is the first time that he'd worked with other people, and it was quite difficult for him to let go of the strings a little bit and let other people join in on his process.
Awesome. I mean, that's just so great. I love it. And I do have to do a shout out, though. One of my favorite films this year was Wallace and Gromit. I have to say, I loved Wallace and Gromit. I love that they circled back to their original film and brought back Feathers McGraw and just did a whole circle back to their roots and paid tribute to that, especially since the original voice of Gromit, Wallace, has passed on. I think that was just a beautiful tribute, and they did it so well. And I was just like a little kid with that film. I just couldn't stop giggling about this film. There were so many hidden, little Easter eggs to find, and I just loved it. So I don't know what their odds are of winning, but I'm just so happy they got nominated. One of my favorite films of the year, most definitely.
I mean, it's like this year is going to be interesting as far as best animated feature, because not only are all five of these films absolutely fantastic, and I mean, Joan, me, Flow was my favorite film of the year. I basically co-sign everything Kaz said about it. I love just it. It feels like a dream. It feels like it feels like very stream of conscience. Like this happens and this happens and this happens, and but it's all planned out. I love the music. It's my favorite score of the year. Um, but no, I mean, there's a part of me that's like, maybe Flow can win just because it also has that international feature nomination.
Mm-hmm.
But the Academy loves Wallace and Gromit. I mean, they really do. I don't know that it'd be this year though. I really don't know. I mean, obviously, the one movie that I think a lot of people were originally thinking was going to be, it's going to be Inside Out 2, biggest hit of the year and all that stuff. Disney, Pixar. I think it's probably going to be between Flow and Wild Robot, though, because Wild Robot was fantastic. I mean, this seriously was one of the strongest categories that animated features been in since its inception. Like all five of these movies are just absolutely fantastic. And Wild Robot it's like Chris. Like one of the things I said was when I did my review of Wild Robot, it's Chris Sanders basically breaking my heart again, because you go back to what he did with Lilo and Stitch. You basically go back to what he did with co-directing How to Train Your Dragon. Like this is the type of story that he really excels in, and he just knocks out of the park. But I will say, if you haven't seen Memoirs of the Snail, it may not win the Oscar, but give it a watch, because it is very bleak, but it's also a magnificent film. But no, I mean, I love Flow. I mean, my wife and I are cat people, so it's like we have three cats now, so it's like it's one of those things where that part is very personal to me, and but I just love the story. I love the way it unfolds. It just is it's a movie about people. It's a movie about characters from different backgrounds in various adversarial positions coming together to help one another, and I really love that. I think that's such an important thing to show now, and it just did such a great job with that.
Absolutely. Val, you want to say something about it? Or Wild Robot?
Yeah, I love the Wild Robot, and Wallace and Gromit also. I have not yet seen Memoir of a Snail or Flow. I loved just the trailers for Flow, like the look of the animation, and I just have not had time to watch it, unfortunately. Although I did see when it won the Golden Globe. I think it's the Art Museum in Latvia. They shared on social media. People lined up to see the Golden
Yes,
Globe
yes.
statue, just like completely wound around the staircases of the museum and to get a look at this the Golden Globe. And I thought that that just was incredibly touching. That people turned out in droves to look at the award. So it's definitely like a little movie that seems to have something deeper to say. The Wild Robot, I thought, was just the animation was so beautiful. It's parts that look
Mhm.
like such like a painting. And sometimes, like when there's a shot where Roz touch the robot touches like the side of a tree, but it's got these golden butterflies and they all take off. And her relationship with the duckling, because the duckling as he grows, he nestles on her like kind
Mhm.
of what would be at her neck under her chin. And as she becomes more overgrown while she's living in the wild, that becomes shiny because he always snuggles in there. Just the attention to detail with that I thought was just marvelous. And I I don't want to mispronounce her name, but Lupita Nyong'o's the voice work. I loved her in A Quiet Place Day One,
Yeah.
and I pretty much love her and everything she does. But she has such just so affecting a voice performance as this robot, and like the comedy in the beginning that hits, when she's like asking if she can be of service, and there's like the one and then how you can see that she's changed, and then when she meets the other version of the Roz robot who thinks she's defective because now she cares and she has
Mhm.
empathy, and she's like, no, there's nothing wrong with me. She's such a huge heart of that movie. And Pedro Pascal does a lot too as the Fox character, who's like at first he tries to eat the little duckling, and he's kind of a wily sort, and he almost becomes like a surrogate dad or a surrogate uncle. That I think, again, to Brian's point earlier, that's another one about characters under duress trying to things out and work together. And there may be
Mhm.
some realities of where they can't always like get along because you've got the predators and prey of nature in there. But
Mhm.
there are some times when they realize that there's something bigger and more important,
This
and
really
they
begs
need
the
to
question,
work
I
it
think,
out.
of when is the Academy going to recognize voice acting? Because, like you were saying, I mean, these people were phenomenal in their voice acting. They gave so much, and really, honestly, I think that a lot of the older Disney performances also deserved some recognition for their voice acting, certainly. So it's with such a strong year for animation, it really brings home that what animation brings to filmdom. I mean, there was just so many strong contenders this year that I hope that it gets more seriously taken going forward by the Academy, and that eventually we do see people getting nominated for their voice work. Obviously, it's not for kids. I mean, I think a few years ago, even Del Toro was saying, animation is not for kids when he was doing
Yeah.
Pinocchio. It's not just for kids, and I hopefully they get that message sooner rather than later, because we keep driving it home by seeing these wonderful films that voice acting is acting. It's part of the process. So yeah, anyway, let's go to another film that maybe isn't easy to love. Maybe we can't say we love it because it's not cute and cuddly, but The Substance certainly has a heck of a lot of nominations this year. Certainly was very successful. It's a genre film, horror, being recognized this year, which is remarkable, and a woman director, which yay. However, had the interesting snub from the Academy that Margaret Qualley did not get nominated for Best Supporting Actress. I thought The Substance was not a film that's maybe lovable, but was certainly remarkable in what it was saying and what it represented and how it presented horror as an allegory. And of course, our horror often is allegory. It's just that I think that maybe the Academy's finally caught up with us and in recognizing that. So loving that Demi Moore got nominated, fantastic. Loving that we have a Best Director woman, the only one this year, but we'll take it. She was nominated in the director's category. And interestingly, I found out that The Substance received 5 nominations, where a previous Oscar winner for Best Picture, The Exorcist, only received 4. And that boggles my mind, because I thought for sure William Friedkin had been nominated. And I went back and checked and said, well, how in the did he get overlooked for a nomination? The screenplay one, which was an adaptation, obviously, from the book.
Yeah.
Which from by Peter Blatty. But it actually beat Exorcist in a number of nominations, which is staggering. Because if you realize, from 1973 to 2025, we've got these 2 films being taken seriously, and one might argue that they were each commentary on the society of the time. And it's just staggering that now we have, one that's gotten another nomination more than Exorcist, which is considered a benchmark of horror. I mean, you don't have to like horror, but you recognize The Exorcist as being a benchmark of film and horror. And now we have The Substance, and I hope that it stands the test of time as much as The Exorcist does, as a benchmark in horror and what it's trying to say. I hope so. Fingers crossed. But yeah, I'm rooting for Coralie. I'm rooting for Coralie this year. I am putting it out there, rooting for her. So yeah, let's discuss. How did we feel about The Substance? Kaz, you wrote a brilliant piece comparing it to Barbie. I loved it. It was fantastic. Totally terrific. How did we feel about The Substance, as far as not loving it, but certainly it was remarkable?
The experience of seeing it was amazing. I left that cinema just like completely mind blown, and I was like, that was amazing. I never want to see it again. And it sort of sums up, like, I spent a lot of it through my fingers, just squirming, but like at the start, there wasn't that many people in my screening, but enough that everybody was being very British and very kind of quiet. There's no talking, there's no, if the person 2 rows over is eating popcorn in a cinema, I'm annoyed because they're making noise, And we all started off quite quietly, and by the end, I was just literally screaming swear words at the top of my voice and squirming and screaming and like doing all of that kind of stuff, because it was so gross and visceral, but at the same time, it had so much to say, and that's why I just really loved it, especially the third aspect of it, when the super monster came. And I was like, okay, because what they said was not that this will be your best self. They said this will be this, like, the ultimate self that you've wanted, something like that. I cannot remember how they phrased it, but it was like this is who you've always wanted to be, something like that. So it was amazing that she/it/they did get to go on the stage. And they did get to be a star, but they were just hideous in doing it. And so I just loved the third act, whatever it was, when this monster came out. I was like, that is utter perfection. Please stop, though. I can't cope with this, but this is brilliant. So for original screenplay, it's up against some good competition, though. I suppose in every category it will be, but I think, as a director and as a script writer, she's got to get something. And I have no idea how to pronounce her surname because I forgot to look it up before we started. But Coralie, all props to you, Coralie, because everything that you're up for, like an absolute visionary and an absolute, like, let's just turn the world on its head. And she didn't just think, I'm going to make a nice little script and it's going to be a bit scary. She was like, I'm just going to go hell for leather and just be like, screw it. I'm going to throw everything I've got at this thing, and if people don't like it, tough luck. So
absolutely. It was great. It's great. Yeah.
No, I mean, I wish I'd gotten a chance to see this in theater. I just had no time to get to it theatrically. So I didn't catch up to it until I was getting ready to start to vote for Atlanta Film Critics Circle. But it is it's funny because of the fact that I think part of the reason I do wonder whether part of the reason that this got as much love as it did is I think because of Demi Moore and the narrative around her. I also think this is a story about Hollywood, and tends to be whether they like the message or not about Hollywood. Whether it's a positive or negative message about Hollywood, they tend to nominate movies about Hollywood, and this is very much in keeping with that. I am I mean, I'm somebody who I don't know that I put her performance above Mikey Madison for Nora or Cynthia for Wicked, but I am fully on board with the idea of Demi Moore winning Best Actress. I love that she had her moment at the Globes. Been watching her movies for decades. I'm a fan of her. I love that she had that moment. Would love for this to be her moment. And I mean, because let's face it, I think Cynthia's going to have other opportunities. Mikey, she's at the beginning of her career. Now, granted, I mean, all of the precursors point to her winning. I think the narrative is going to be for Demi Moore. And I think that's going to be extraordinary. Writing, I mean, yeah, it's there are five really good nominees, I think, for original screenplay. I think it's going to be a bit rough for screenplay because I think Sean Baker's probably going to win for Nora. For director, I feel like it's going to be Brady Corbett for Brutalist.
So
Whether you consider that the best directorial achievement or not. Makeup and hairstyling is going to be really interesting this year. It's
Oh, yes.
really going to be fascinating to see.
Oh, yes.
There's a part of me that's like, oh yeah, I can see Substance easily winning that, and it would deserve it. But then you have Nosferatu. Then you have A Different Man, which I still haven't seen, but I've heard fantastic things about. Emilia Perez, most nominated film. I doubt it's going to get there. Wicked, possibly, but I just don't know if that's going to be the play there. So I think it's going to be between Nosferatu and Substance for makeup and hairstyling. As far as Margaret Qualley not getting nominated for supporting actress, I mean, the fact of the matter is you don't get one performance without the other. This is a case where they are more co-leads than they are actress supporting actress. And I mean that is as a theme throughout the entire film where it's like they are one. You can't have one without the other. And so, I mean, are there names like I probably will have, if you're intent on putting her in supporting actress, I could have easily done without Isabella Rossellini in Conclave. She's really good in it, but it just wasn't the type of performance where I'm like, I mean, that might be her first nomination though, isn't it? Rossellini?
So, yeah.
So that might be where she got in, and Qualley's probably going to have her chance later on. But it's like, so I can, but the other four, even though I'm not a huge fan of, Emilia Perez at all, I understand why Zoe Saldana got in there. I'm glad that Felicity Jones was remembered for Brutalist. Ariana Grande is wonderful and Wicked. I mean, even Monica Barbaro wouldn't have been one of my top choices, but I can understand why she got in for Complete Unknown, especially since they clearly love that movie.
Yeah, I did not love A Complete Unknown that much.
I
I
didn't
thought,
either.
yeah, I thought, I thought some of it was, I don't think it's a bad film. I think if you love Bob Dylan, and also, um, I thought it kind of recreated that era of walking around in the village in the 70s, and popping into place here and seeing, hanging out in the folk music scene. I thought it did that really well. I saw it with a friend who was a teen at that time, and she absolutely loved it because it took her back to those days. As far as James Mangold and musical biopics, I like Walk the Line tons better.
Mhm.
But I did like Monica Barbaro as Joan Baez. I also, and that's possibly because I like Joan Baez's character in that film a lot more than Bob Dylan. An actress in a supporting role. I have not seen this film, but The Piano Lesson with Danielle Deadwyler.
Oh,
I read a lot of chatter from people who were like, talk about snubs.
yeah.
They're like, where's Danielle Deadwyler? They said because she was amazing until, and here she is in The Piano Lesson, turning in it in yet another strong performance. And as
Mhm.
far as beyond that, um, as far as other supporting actors, one of the films that I was delighted that made the cut of the best film picture nominees was Nickel Boys.
Yeah.
And Anjanou Ellis Taylor is so good in that as
Mhm.
one of the lead boys' grandmother. Whenever
Yeah.
she's on scene, she just is. She's such love and such decency and such frustration at what's happening to, and anger at what's happening to her grandson in this system.
Mhm.
And that was a film that I've been talking about, that that's also up for adapted screenplay. And I live in Florida, and the paper here had covered some of those, the fictionalized camps in the film. They covered the real ones where they unearthed bodies from the Jim Crow days of boys that had been sent to these so-called reform schools, and they just brutally abused them and killed them and buried them in the back. And to deal with that kind of an atrocity and generational horror, and it has this friendship of these two boys, and the way that Ramel Ross and his team shot it, to where a lot of times it's in the first person perspective of one boy or the other, and it takes a little bit to adapt because
Mhm.
they're at different points in their life, and so you're not immediately sure who you're with sometimes, but you do figure it out. And it's a nice challenge to have. And it doesn't um it doesn't glorify this violence. Like, there was one scene where he's the main character is getting beaten, and you see this windowless cinder block room, and this tree or post that they're going to tie him to, and he's frightened, you know. And then you hear sounds of the lashes, but the images you see are a black and white photograph of the boys, of a class of the boys from different eras, from the newspaper article that reported on these generations of kids who had been sent there and tortured. And so it wasn't just this one kid. and it was so much like more impactful. And then by, there there are some twists to it. And but that was one where I got back to the car and I just sobbed. And I found
Absolutely.
that, yeah, I thought the movie was deeply affecting, and I was glad that, it's getting the love uh, in these nominations that I think it deserves. I think it's certainly, sometimes the Oscars highlight the issue in a film that they think is important and deserves to be, noticed. And, I was so happy for that one, and circling back to the substance. I read the script of that, which is a pretty wild read. I did not I did
Go
not
ahead.
see I did not see the film because I am often not a very good horror viewer. I'm like Kaz, I'm like through my fingers. And so I was curious enough that I was like, okay, I'm curious, but I'll read it. So that because there were so many reviews that talked about it being this visceral experience, and there's lots of squelch, and then I was just like, I don't know how I'm gonna like watch. Honestly, how I'm gonna watch this because I'm not gonna watch him, so I'll read it. Um, I think somebody noticed, or I think it was Carlos Aguilar, who's a critic in the LA Times, that he said that it's interesting that Between the Substance and A Different Man, which was what Sebastian Stan won a Golden Globe for, and he didn't get any recognition in the Oscars for it. But he said it's interesting that both of these films have main characters who can't stand what they see in the mirror, and
Mhm.
and in The Substance, there's this greater commentary about women, especially in the entertainment industry, and how they're disposable, or you could just make the new latest model, kind of, so to speak. Um, but both of those films have to do with very much what's on the inside, and how horrible and horrifying that can be when you can't deal with what's on the inside. So, I think for um, for all the attention the substance has gotten, as far as, maybe the shock of all the visceral stuff, she does have something of substance to say, no pun intended there, that you could destroy yourself trying to live up to something that you think is going to make you happy. You'll destroy your dead and make everyone else happy. You'll destroy yourself. And so, and Demi Moore has actually talked at length about this, and how, she's just being in the field she's in, even before being offered this, she's had a lot of thought about that. And I think it
Mhm.
was in the Guardian, she gave a really wonderful interview about that. So, that I am happy to see Coralie be nominated as a woman director. I wish there were more women directors there, but this is kind of the cockeyed thing you get when they expand the best picture nominees
Mhm.
to 10, and they keep the directors to
Exactly,
5.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We were talking about Nickel Boy being reflective of some, past in America that maybe we don't really want to acknowledge. And I think that one of the nominations for documentary this year, which is one of my favorite films this year, was Sugarcane, which is fantastic and devastating, and not just for America, but Canada as well. And being next door neighbors with our friends in Canada up here in Washington, I really loved the film. Totally devastating, acknowledging schools for Native Americans where children were just taken away and often never seen again. And that part of our history that maybe we don't want to face. And I'm really happy it did get nominated, because I was concerned, like you say, sometimes the Academy does not want to acknowledge certain historians, sometimes they do. And I was really delighted that it did get a nomination. Whether it wins or not is another matter, but that was beautiful. I was very, very disappointed that The Piano Lesson did not at least get an adaptation nomination from the play from August Wilson, because I thought it was brilliantly,
Mhm.
brilliantly done. I am a huge fan of Danielle Deadwyler. I was terribly disappointed that she was not acknowledged for Till. I'm disappointed she did not receive a Best Supporting Actress nod here. She was riveting. She was fantastic. I That was one of my favorite films of the year as well. The Piano Lesson was amazing for me, and how it was adapted and how powerful it was. So often when you have a play, I think it loses its potency from not being the immediacy on stage. And I think they captured it so well in that film. So it still felt visceral, it still felt immediate, it still felt powerful, and I was so thrilled with it. But it did not get nominated. And interestingly, Valerie, you mentioned Sebastian Stan has been recognized for A Different Man,
Yeah.
virtually in every other award ceremony. What's going on here? And the Oscars acknowledged him from a completely different film, and as well as Jeremy Strong. And the league did publish a review for this, because we did catch it at Cannes. Thank you, Sarah Manville, who's always brilliant. She caught it at Cannes and wrote the review. But a very interesting message for the Academy to be sending out, that they did not acknowledge A Different Man. They acknowledged a completely different film for Sebastian Stan. And it's interesting because Sebastian Stan has already gone out and spoken out about this film as being perhaps something that he suffered backlash from doing. So it's like,
Mm.
interesting. What are we trying to say here, Academy? Apparently, maybe they are responding to him speaking out with previous award ceremonies about his experience, or maybe I don't know. I don't know what to make of this. So he is nominated. So is Jeremy Strong. And it's going to be really interesting to see how that pans out, I think. And if either one of them win, what acceptance speeches they make. So,
I, I
so
don't I don't see either of them winning. Just because those categories, I supporting actor, if it's not Kieran Culkin at this point, I'll be stunned.
seriously.
Um, best actor, I I I don't know at this point, because of the fact that, I mean, you know, it seemed like it was going to be Adrian Brody kind of just walking away from it with Brutalist, which, I mean, he's fantastic in, but I mean, does the love with a complete unknown mean we might be seeing Timothy Chalamet win it? I personally would love to see Coleman Domingo win Best Actor, because he's been my number one in that category ever since I watched Sing Sing. Unfortunately, the film not getting Best Picture doesn't help it. And then there are a lot of people who think Ray Fiennes should get for Conclave, just because it's been like he's one of those actors that feels like he's due, and clearly the Academy loves Conclave. Um, I think as far as The Apprentice goes, I mean, the question is, the question you brought up is whether it's political or whether it's based on merit. I think it's both. I'm not a huge fan of the movie in general, but I thought both of them are terrific in it. And so seeing both of them in the nominees doesn't necessarily surprise me, because both of their work is really good in it. But yeah, I mean, I can, but you've got to figure it's a biopic, and Hollywood, if nothing else loves their biopics, and so I mean, that's entirely a possibility as well. Are they needling Trump a little bit for it? Sure, I can see that. I mean, honestly, but I can also see, you know what? I mean, you've gotten some backlash for this, Sebastian, but you're really good in the movie, and so we're going to nominate you. Going back to what Valerie was talking about with Nickel Boys, I love that it got nominated for Picture. It was one of the best movies I saw this past year, it really resonated hard with me when I saw it in October at our first press screening in Atlanta. I have no idea how this did not get nominated for cinematography. I am baffled how this didn't get nominated for cinematography. It's like you nominated for Best Picture, but you didn't nominate for cinematography. Really? Um, I'm glad she brought up Ingenue Ellis Taylor. She's wonderful in Nickel Boys. And Danielle Deadweiler. I wonder what this award season will have looked like had Netflix pushed Piano Lesson over Amelia Perez. I think it would have been a much more interesting year in a positive direction. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about Amelia Perez. I would love to see Piano Lesson get more love though, between Daniel Deadweiler, between the screenplay, even with Alexander Desplat's score, which I absolutely loved.
Oh, beautiful. It was beautiful. It was absolutely that score. Oh my goodness. Oh. Honestly, shout out to Ray Fisher because he was dynamite. Oh my goodness, he was so great. He was so great. I was so thrilled to see him in this film. Yeah. It's tough because I think that Ray Fiennes, it might be his year. It might be his year. I did not love Conclave. I thought it was very well done. I did not love it. I think that Fiennes has one speech in this film that may win it for him.
Yeah.
And you've seen the film, you probably know which one I'm talking about. But I was not loving the film. I mean, it worked. It was great, but it wasn't fantastic. It wasn't, I don't think it was Fiennes' best work. I Stanley Tucci being snubbed is surprising because he has been nominated elsewhere. But honestly, I felt like Stanley Tucci was playing Stanley Tucci. And that's not a bad thing because I happen to think he's fantastic. But I don't think I don't see him doing any stretching of his acting ability in this film. I think to a certain extent, you could say the same with Ray Fiennes, but there was one speech in Conclave that he makes, and I think we all know which one it was if we've seen the film, that if he does win, it's probably for that speech. Yeah, Conclave was complicated for me. It's not, I'm kind of a mixed feeling about that one.
I with Conclave, it's like it is very much it. I feel like it's one of those movies that when we think about the word Oscar bait, that is very much an Oscar bait type movie. I don't mean that as a detriment because of the fact that I do think the film is really well made. I really enjoyed it, but I it kind of exists in a way towards it's aimed more towards being an Oscar contender that is a popular film. And I mean, it's like Stanley Tucci not getting nominated. Yeah, it's a little surprising, but you look at the other five that the five that did get nominated. I don't know who I mean, maybe Edward Norton, but Edward Norton's been nominated several times now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's clearly beloved by the Academy. Guy Pearce, I'm so glad he ended up getting in for Brutalist. A Real Pain was not one of my favorite movies of the year. I recognize Kieran Culkin was really good. I mean, my top choice of these nominees is Yura Borisov from Anora. He was fantastic. But yeah, I mean, this is one of those years where it's like the acting nominations are just kind of all over the place for me as far as how I feel about them because I mean, I know for me, like very few of my very top picks for personal picks for this year got nominated at all. Like just in any of the acting categories. And so it's one of those things where like really I would love Coleman Domingo to win and other categories. And I mentioned Demi Moore, I wouldn't mind her I would love her winning, but supporting actors just supporting actor and actors just kind of do what you're gonna do at this point. So
It's true. It's true. I mean, I think we could say the same thing with the actresses. It's all over the place, right? I mean, it's all
Yeah.
over the place. I wouldn't mind seeing Demi Moore win, but I think honestly, uh, perhaps there was someone else that deserves it more. And I hate to say that because she was fantastic. But without Margaret Qualley working with her and balancing her, like this was a weird film that way, and that the two of them really did seem like they were one. And I can't
Mm.
see the one without the other, honestly. I don't know. It's almost like it gets negated without Margaret being part of the equation, not for me. That, she wouldn't have been so convincing if Margaret wasn't playing her other self. It sold it for me that she was so good because Margaret did so well in playing her as well. You know what I mean? Margaret playing Demi made Demi stronger, I guess, to me. So I have a problem with that. I would love to see her win. But to me, without Margaret being also nominated, it seemed like almost like detracts from her performance in a way because Margaret Qualley amplified her in this role, and that's just how the role was written. And for me, it's kind of like it misses something without them together, both winning, I guess. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's just, I think, the nature of this very interesting film. Also, it's different in that respect, in that it was written for two very strong women roles. And that's
Mhm.
just the way it was formatted. That was just the way it was structured. So to only nominate one of them somehow doesn't seem right. And as much as I would like seeing her winning, something's missing. It's a Margaret Qualley shaped hole here, that's missing there. That if she does win, it seems wrong somehow for me anyway.
As
I don't
far
know how you
as
feel about that.
what was um above, since we've been talking a while, I don't know if like how we should probably wrap up pretty soon. But before we do, I want to talk about one of our other our um films that we chatted about early last year, that didn't get any nods, which was Furiosa. I thought for sure that Furiosa might get like a visual effects, or it kind of perhaps raises the question of there being a stunt category again, or even special effects. I was surprised to see Alien Romulus in the air for special effects, honestly. I mean, as far as Alien movies, it's probably the the one that I've actually enjoyed of the recent batch. But I don't know that I'd say it would be a worthy um, visual effects nominee. Compared to something like Furiosa. The other ones in that
Mhm.
category, I can see where they were put in there. And we finally got to catching our family finally caught up on all of the we didn't see Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, but we saw the other three the apes movies in this saga, and they've all
Mhm.
been great. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah,
that,
Furiosa was completely overlooked, which is kind of surprising. Certainly costumes, editing, hair and makeup, special effects. Interestingly, I think it's won other awards nominations and other organizations. Chris Hemsworth, supporting actor, was
mhm,
fantastic, I thought, but again, he was overlooked as well. Yeah, it's interesting that that did not even get any acknowledgement in even of the technicals, you would
yeah,
think. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I still would love to see it cut with the original Furiosa and made one film though. I'm holding out hope someday that happens because I think that would be tremendous. You're right, we are almost out of time and we are just scratching the surface here. However, we have time yet before the awards actually take place, and who knows? Perhaps we'll revisit this again, even with a reel or something to that effect, or check the league print because we'll do some more posting this coming month as we get closer to the awards ceremony itself. And a shout out to Los Angeles. We love you, Los Angeles. We know you're still struggling. and we're pulling for you. We know it's tough. We know it's tough right now, but we're with you. And we're praying for rain for you too, and we're pulling for you. So all our friends in LA, hang in there. Thank you, Kaz. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Valerie, for being with us today. This has been In the League. Like and subscribe. We have a lot more, and stay tuned because, like I said, Kaz is going to the Berlinale, and we're going to be covering Sundance very shortly. Can't wait for that. Thanks for being with us today, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.